Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So I like to speak about today the black conscience, black conscience imams and the black conscience Muslim community and the summary of where they come from and what type of roles do they play inside the black community today, in particular the African American Muslim community. And some of the black conscious imams or black conscious communities that I'm fully aware of or have experience with, some of the good and some of the bad pertaining to the black community and where they're heading to and what's going to be the outcome if they don't make changes. So first and foremost, I'm speaking about the black conscious community, African American Muslim community that have a black conscious agenda, or their masjid or their community that was built on the black conscious Muslims movements that inspire their community or inspire them to come together as a community. One of my, I think, first experiences with the African American black conscious Muslim communities is back in '98, or when I came out of prison. Right, I came out of prison like in 2001, maybe two weeks or 3 weeks before 9/11. So here from New York, there are many black conscious Muslim communities, right? And this is not pertaining to Masjid Taqwa, or this is not pertaining to Imam Siraj, but there is amongst the African American Muslims in New York and other places, black conscious Muslim communities. And many of the Imams in New York that are African American, that are old school. I'm not talking about anybody around my age. I'm 42 years old. I'm not talking about anybody, mostly no one in their 40s and down. I'm talking about the old school brothers, old school Imams who are African American, who came from that black conscious movement, right? There is a deep, how can I say the right way? There's a deep conscious movement amongst blacks right now. And the African American community within the United States have some type of dealings with the need to make change. One is internal, one is external. The internal is the internal struggles that we have to do as black people to get our stuff straight, right? There's things going on internally with black peoples in America, and that's even within the black conscious community, whether they're Muslim or not. And then there's the external conflict, which is not by us, but is by government, by whites, by white hate groups, and basically anti-black attitudes, right, that blacks have to face with. This is one of the external struggles, right? And the internal struggles for the black African American, whether they're Muslim or not, is that our internal struggles are fighting to come together for one common cause, right? These are two different struggles within the African American Muslim community, or the conscious community, that I have noted over the years, or I've witnessed them over the years, that I have dealings with as being Muslim, or my conversion to Islam. There are some things I have noted about them over the many years I have been Muslim and been with them, that they need to be changed, or they need to be addressed. All right. And some of them I'm gonna mention are very crucial. So first and foremost, a lot of the black conscious movements or African American Muslim movements leaders that exist today, they either or came from the civil rights movement, right, or the black conscious movements from the 60s and the 70s. So either or they came some form or fashion out the civil rights movement. Either it was through the Black Panthers, either it was through the Nation of Islam, either it was through War of Being Muhammad. Some form or fashion they came from the black conscious movements, right? And they embraced Islam. And we can see that with some imams, I mentioned their name, how they was part of the Black Conscious movement, whether it's through civil rights or through the places like Nations of Islam or the Black Panthers. For example, Imam Brown, right? He came out of the Black Panthers, right? And there's other imams like him who came from some of the black movements from the 60s and the 70s, and they have embraced Islam. One of the main issues of today time is that some of the procedures or some of the techniques that were used then in the black conscious community, some of the techniques are outdated for today's situations, right? Like, for example, there's some of the imams who come from the conscious community, African American black conscious community, where they see that protesting is the means to getting what black people need. There's some of them that see getting together to be black with no agenda, that's going to fix the issue of the black community, right? And then you have those who believe in the protesting and rallying. This is going to this is the means to the ends. And then you have those from the black conscious community. They're speaking about their blackness, and that's the means for the Muslim to come together. But when you go inside their community and you look inside their Muslim community, that whether it's related to the black people's struggles within, meaning related to finances, related to reparation, or black city reparation, related to finances, related to black business owners or black owned business, or related to education, or black owning their community, or building a community, or owning their community. When you look inside their community, that you're going to see that there's a lot of things missing. There's a lot of disorganization, right? And because times are changing, culture is changing. Like, I'm 42, the generation before me, or I mean after me, the younger generation, they had a totally different mind setting, and they're going through a totally different type of struggle. Along with the struggle that every black person is facing, they're also going through another type of struggle that's related to their age group, right? And there's going to be some new struggles that they're going to have to deal with, right? So in the communities of the black conscious community, it's like they're still operating with the same mind setting that the black movements were going through in the 60s and the 70s. And a lot of their imams have never adapted to the times, meaning that, for example, and you go to some of their communities, their imams, he want everybody to follow his opinion in everything. For example, they want you, to give them bay'ah. I remember when I came to Islam and I was dealing with the black conscious African American Muslim community, there was a thing in their culture that they used to tell people you have to give bay'ah to their imam, right? And this is something that is specifically for the Muslim ruler. This is never really was for imam in the masjid, right? So when they came to Islam, their organization as Muslims came from that black conscious movement, whether they came from the nation, whether they came from the Black Panther Party, whether they came out of the civil rights movement. Their organization skills, that when they became Muslim, they adapted those ways and mentalities from the black nationalist movements or conscious movements. And some of those mind settings and organization skills that they had, or the mind setting or the culture that they had, it didn't benefit the Muslims. And some of their leaders today are operating today in their masses in 2021 on the same type of thinking. All right, they're the leader. Everybody must blindly follow them. But when you look at some of their black conscious Muslim imams, you look at some of them who from the past, that they never adopted to their times, and they never grow with the community. When the community had growth, they didn't grow. All right. When the community grow, they didn't grow. When the community expanded, they didn't expand it. When the community outside of them start growing, or the blacks start losing their community around them, when people came inside and other communities came inside and other people started growing and developing financially, they didn't grow financially, all right? Because their mind setting, they was operating and practicing as their movement, they came out of it, was practicing. And a lot of those movement died out. The Black Panther Party died out. Well, the government killed it off, all right? But they died out, right? Nation Islam somewhat died out. War of the Muhammad community, somewhat they exist today, but they are still doing good in their community financially and stuff like that. But religiously is a different story. So a lot of the movement died out. Even when they entered the folds of Islam, the methodology that they chose to follow didn't move with the time, didn't grow with the time. So you have some of them imams today that they are operating on a methodology that's not good for now. All right? It's like somebody who's driving a car in 2021 from 1960, all right? The car is not going to have maybe some of the special features in the car or safety features in the car that's made or designed for today's roads, right? So they might have no certain type of safety features. So if you get in an accident, most likely you will get a lot of trauma, right? Because the cars are not updated for modern day safety. As technology changed for cars and safety issues, those cars didn't adapt, all right? Some of the imams in the African American conscious community, they're just like that, all right? And a lot of them are stuck on, when I say, in nostalgia. And this is something that blacks, we have as a problem, whether we are Muslim or not Muslim, that many of us, we stuck in the past on nostalgia, right? We stuck on Malcolm X's life. We're not stuck on finishing what he started. A lot of us are stuck on Martin Luther King's Jr. works and experience, but no one's right now is finishing Martin Luther King's work. For example, Martin Luther King Jr., he was assassinated because he wanted to start poor people's movements, meaning that the government give people's money, poor people, that the government give blacks reparation, and that's when they killed him, right? Malcolm X wanted to go to United Nations and bring U.S. government on charges for discrimination against blacks, human rights against blacks, all right? In the United States. But those people who talk about Malcolm X, they're not doing his work, right? They're not finishing his work. Those people who follow Martin Luther King Jr. and talk about him, they're not finishing his work. So blacks, we get caught up in nostalgia, and we're not caught up into times today now. So a lot of the conscious black community, they have leaders or imams in the community, they are outdated. And they are outdated not in just one or two places. They're outdated when it comes to Islamic knowledge, all right? They don't have the Islamic knowledge. Many of them don't have Islamic knowledge, all right? They know some surahs in Quran. They know things about, some basic things about hadith. But when it comes to Islamic fiqh, as we know as the jurisprudence in Islam, and a scholar or an imam who studied this in his field, and he's proficient in it, he has a degree in it, they don't have that, right? When it comes to Islamic identity and religious knowledge and what it needs for a religious leader, a lot of the qualifications they don't have, because many of them fell in their positions by default. So when it comes to a lot of Islamic knowledge, many of them, they don't have it, all right? They just could talk good talk. They just could talk real good. It's very, people hear them, people who are not trained in the fields of Islamic sciences, people who are not trained, when they hear them speak about Islamic sciences or religion, they get very hyped. Oh, this person is very knowledgeable. But somebody who has knowledge will know, oh, this person is just a mediocre in this. He doesn't know what he's really talking about. Or when they get into situations with family members, or people go to them for Islamic resolutions or Islamic solutions and resolutions. They don't have the proper Islamic understanding. They're just operating off of some book they read about 20 years ago, written by Mount Duty, who himself is not a Muslim scholar, or they're working off of some information that's mixed up, right, with falsehood and truth. They don't know what is what, but this is what they was taught. Why? Because when they converted to Islam, the books that were translated were very few, right? Very few books were translated, right? And this is the material they studied. These translated books with mistakes in them, right? And they've been operating from years from these type of books, and they haven't been acquiring Islamic knowledge the correct way, right? The reason why they're in their positions today, or still exist in their positions today, out of nostalgia, basically. Out of nostalgia. They're only the Imams today in their community still out of nostalgia. That's all it is. While the people inside their community are suffering. They're suffering financially. They're suffering Islamically. Right? They're suffering. But the Imam in the community, he's just there out of nostalgia. Out of nothing else. He has no good Islamic knowledge. He's not a scholar in Islam. And all the years he's been in the position, he never bothered to qualify himself. And then when people in the community becomes qualified with the Islamic knowledge, or even with the dunya knowledge, they don't want these people in positions in the community because they don't want to be replaced, right? Because he been in this position for 20 years, 30 years, and that's his only income. So anybody new who come, he got more knowledge, or he's qualified. Oh, if he goes, I don't have an income. That's his perspective. The people in the community, they keep him there out of nostalgia. Out of nostalgia. You got me? Out of nostalgia. They keep him there. They reminiscing. Oh man, this Imam so-and-so. Oh man, he used to be with Malcolm X. Oh, this Imam so-and-so. He was part of the Black Panther Party. Or this Imam so-and-so. He was part of the Civil Rights Movement. He's kept there out of nostalgia. Not because he could reproduce. Right? He could produce something. Not because of productive activity. Then we have some of them. I'm not going to paint the brush that all of them are like this. But I met some of them who came out of these movements. And they exist today. They're old. They're elderly. But they try their best to get some proper Islamic knowledge. They try their best to stay in contact with people who have knowledge. They try their best to bring in people inside the community that have these type of knowledges in the religion and knowledge pertaining to dunya stuff, right? They do their best. I met a few of them. They try to keep people in the community who have information or knowledge. They try to keep them in the community to give talks and things like that, right? Labas. So in reality is the way they're operating and keeping these imams in our community is out of nostalgia. All right, out of nostalgia. While in their community, the people inside the community, the people who live outside the community are suffering. Yeah, brother Nathaniel, that's what they say. I heard many of them say. I'm from New York. I heard many of them say that. I heard many of the imams say that. I heard one of them tell a brother, oh, he went to study in Medina, right? He said, oh, we let you work here when you graduate. The brother graduated. Then it's like, oh, no, you don't have the experience. That I heard all their speeches, and I'm from New York. They have the same mentality in New York, all right? Same mentality, right? So they're operating off of the understanding of Islam that blacks in America, when we enter to the Islam, when black people start entering Islam back in the 60s and the 70s, as groups, not as individuals, but as groups of people, a lot of us start into Islam. The late 60s, 70s, and the 80s, and particularly in the 80s, a lot of the imams who were established in the 80s and stuff in our community, they are practicing Islam based on a few books that were circulating in English language from India and Pakistan, from Jamaatul Tabligh, from Pakistan, and people like this. This is how they was getting their understanding of Islam. All right? Not through real Islamic scholarship. And then when they had the opportunity Because some of their imams in their community had the opportunity to go away and study Islam for years. They didn't do it. Or they couldn't finish it. They couldn't do it, or they couldn't finish it. From whatever reason. Either their family members, or whether their responsibilities. And the ones who did finish, who completed with degrees, when they came back, they didn't want them to work inside the community. Why? Because if he's now have the knowledge and he's qualified, the people are going to see, oh man, he has more knowledge. He has all this information. Let's make him the imam or make him the leader of the community. All right. So that's something that we got to get. That's something we got to mention. All right. I have to mention these things. Right. So the communities are lacking. But this is not to discredit them, because many of them, they have what we call leadership ability. And this is why many of them stayed in these places, because they have what? Leadership abilities, meaning they're organized. Some of them are organized. They know how to keep the building afloat. You got me? They know how to manage the money that come through. They know how to keep the building afloat. Some of them. Because some of them also mismanage money. It's a lot of them. I've seen masters from some of them, from masters for many years. Been around for 30 years. I know some masters, black imams, Black Conscious, they have masjids for 30 years, same building, same location, and they still don't own the property. And they got millions of dollars went through them. Millions of dollars probably went through some of their masjids, some of them. Some of them, hundreds of thousands of dollars went through them. And they still don't own the property, right? I know a lot of masjids like that from the African American community, especially from the Black Conscious community, right? They don't own the building. Or for 20, 30 years they've been there, they're still paying no mortgage, right? They're still paying no mortgage on the masjid, right? So some of them, the mismanagement is still there. Why? Because all the black people in the community keep him as the imam for nostalgia, and they leave all the responsibilities of the building and finances on this one guy. And he might not be qualified to run the place financially. What makes him a businessman? What makes him good in management? Right? He might not be good in, and he might be good in giving talks, quick reminders, sound sweet, get you motivated, makes you feel good for a little while, but he doesn't have no business skills on maintaining the building, for example. And so sometimes this is why many of them are like this. So we have a lot of this in our community, right? I want to talk about solutions. It's very easy to point out the problems, right? But I really want to focus on the solution. But before I focus on the solution, I need to talk about what's going on, right? So many of them, they're outdated. Many of them need to step down, or they don't need to step. Some of them need to step down, let the new blood come inside and run the place. But I hear a lot of brothers who go away and study, who have the degree. A lot of them some of them say, hey man, it's time for a lot of these old brothers, imams, who are not really qualified to step down, let people who are qualified to take the position. I'm not 100% with that either. Because what happened is, the brother who is so-called qualified religiously, he take his position. Only thing is going to happen is the same thing is going to circulate in the community. The same type of behavior is going to circulate on the community. The same behavior. It's the same thing is going to recirculate. Because you're qualified now, doesn't mean that you replace them because you're qualified. No. Because the same type of attitude is going to just circulate. Right? It's going to circulate the same attitude, because blacks, we have some type of egos with us. We have some type of, we're a little bit arrogant. Some of us, when we get in positions, we're arrogant, right? So I'm not in 100% that the brother who's qualified take over. I'm not with that either, because the same type of attitude is going to circulate the same type of attitude. It's going to circulate, right? So this is the reality. Reality is, the old imam that have the experience, he might not have the qualifications religiously, even though to his community he sounds very knowledgeable. But those who have knowledge no, he's not. No, he's not. I seen some of the imams, they recite Quran and Salah. They got a lot of mistakes in the recital of Quran, and he been imam for like 20 years in that masjid, right? Or we come to Islamic jurisprudence. He's everywhere. He can't tell you anything. He's like, from books he read, or he read some book. I'm like, that's not authentic. I remember before I first came out of prison, I was like 20, 22, 23, I married somebody and one of these black Afrocentric imams, we had a falling out over a sister I was married to. I was married to this sister, right? Who eventually she apostated from Islam, astaghfirullah. So we had a dispute, right? He's like, yo, pronounce talaq 3 times on her. I was like, where you get this stuff from, man? I was like, where you get this bid'ah, man? Where you get this from? Then he was like, one day, he's like, yo, I run your house, you gotta leave where you live. I said, who tell you this, man? I pay rent here. He's like, yeah, man, you gotta get out that house, man. I run this. I'm like, you run what? I was like, man, I came out of prison. I was like, yo, man, I'll knock you out, right? So I had to get some Egyptian sheikh to step through and tell him, yo, man, you were ignorant. I had some Egyptian sheikh I knew who graduated from Ashar. I was talking with him. He's like, what? I let him hear some of the conversation we was talking about. I mean, I told him some of the conversations we had. He had to call him on the phone and tell him, yo, man, you wrong. How you imam in the community and you're talking like you're ignorant of fiqh, right? And he was shocked. The Egyptian imam was shocked. He's like, how you imam of the community? You're ignorant of fiqh. And this is the reality. We still have these type of imams in our community. This is the solution, all right? Many of them, in reality, because the black community feels, or they feel in the black community, because they're in a position, we should blindly follow them. Then they will say, and I've been an imam before, but not, and I've been an imam in the black community, but they didn't really have a lot of numbers, a lot of followers, a lot of peoples. But they say that the blacks don't know how to follow leadership, right? I agree with both. Blacks don't know how to follow leadership, right? But some of our leaders are not the type of leaders we need, or are not the leaders that we perceive them to be. Some of them are really not religious leaders. I'm going to be real. They're not religious leaders because they are operating in a community like the leaders, individuals in the civil rights movement or the black conscious movements. They're operating with that mentality. They're not operating as an imam who has really have knowledge, because in the Islamic society, the imam is just for the salah in the masjid. The imam is just for somebody for the salah in the masjid. This is number one. We live in a Muslim country. I lived in a Muslim country. I studied Islam in a Muslim country. The imam is somebody for the salah. The imam sometimes not even the sheikh. Sometimes the imam is not even the sheikh. It is somebody who knows how to recite Quran and he understands the conditions related to the salah. And sometimes in the Muslim country, especially our Muslim country, the imam is sometimes the sheikh also. All right? Sometimes the imam is also the sheikh, and the sheikh is also the imam for the salah, right? Because you have in a Muslim country, the sheikh who has doctor in this, he has all the conditions to fill the requirements for the imam in the masjid, right? In the Muslim country, right? In particular, the Arab Muslim countries, right? In America, our conditions and stuff is not the same. So this is going to be reality. When brothers say somebody needs to replace them with brothers who are qualified, this is why I say I don't agree with that also. Because it's going to return the same attitudes going to happen. And why I say that? Because blacks, we have chips on our shoulders when we have positions of authority. All right? So the same attitude is just the imam now, who has some knowledge or qualified, he's in a position, it's going to be the same thing. People are going to go to him, and he's going to be like, I have all the answers, you should blindly follow me. That's the attitude's going to be there. So this is why I'm in agreement. This is what I think, my personal opinion, and it's not correct. My opinion is related to the approach of it. The old school imam, the reality is he have experience with people. He might have leadership abilities, and not the type of leadership I mean as an imam, as a leader, as an imam in the masjid, meaning like a mudir, right? Like a principal of a school, like the head of a director, the director, the head of an institute or a business or a company. He has this type of leadership abilities. Old school imams, some of them have this type of understanding and seeing things. They have this. The reality is you're going to have more than one person run a community. That's the reality. The reality is you're going to need more than one person run a community. meaning that the people who are head of the community, not just one person. But see, look, if I go to the Muslim country, the sheikh who have knowledge, he run his own masjid, most likely. All right? And then he have his peoples that he put in place for the religious affairs. All right? And the life in America, we don't have the same situations in the Muslim country. The imam, how the imam is perceived, how the people perceive the imam and the sheikh in the Muslim country, it's not the same way that Americans perceive, or the African American perceive their imams in America. What I mean by this, for example, the sheikh and the master in the Muslim country, he gives fatwa, he solves problems, he helps people out, but he's basically there to educate the people about the religion, right? Sometimes you have in the Muslim country, in the government, they have people who work in the government who fix people problems, all right? You have people who work in the government in the Muslim country, people who work in the government, right, who fix people problems. You got me? You have people in the government who fix people's problems in the Muslim country. I'm talking about particular in that Arab-speaking country, right? In particular, other non-Arabic speaking country that are Muslim or Islamic, they have the same thing. They have the same type of network in the government. They have people, or government officials, especially in a Muslim country that practices Islam inside the government. They have officials who do certain things. All right. So sometimes the sheikh in the masjid, what he does, teach religion, help people with their problems, remind people about the deen, and he does his duties as an imam, as a sheikh. He does his responsibilities, right? Then the government has its position. In America, we don't have this, all right? So the imam in America, he takes on all these roles. Many of us don't see this. So the imams in America, especially in the African American Muslim community, which we're lacking, all right? We're lacking. We started off lacking in the African American Muslim. I'm not talking about Bangladeshi. I'm not talking about the Arab community. I'm not talking about them. They have their own culture, their own way of thinking, their own way of dealing with solutions and problems. All right, solutions for problems. Right? They have their own way. Right? Because they come from Muslim societies that understand a lot of these concepts already. But us African American, we don't understand these concepts yet. So in reality, the imam in the African American Muslim community, he's taking on all these responsibilities by himself. And this is why I don't knock all the imams who come from the black conscious movement of the imams who still exist, because in reality, look at them, he's not the sheikh. He's not the sheikh. He don't have the Islamic knowledge. But he's dealing with the community and every single problem to the best of his ability. And sometimes some of the things that he's actually doing in the Muslim country, there's government officials who do these things. It's government officials who do these things in the Muslim country. You know, I remember I had a friend of mine that visited Egypt, right? He's Egyptian. And his brother worked for the government in Egypt, right? And he's not a scholar, he's not a sheikh. His brother wasn't a sheikh, wasn't a scholar, but he works with the government, the local government, the village they live, to handle some people problems about marital problems, right? And people who need to get married. And he wasn't no sheikh. He worked for the government. So one day I was with him, he was telling me, you see, there's a woman here, this young girl here, she's pregnant. This is Egypt. That's against the law. She's not married and she's pregnant. And the brother works for the government. He's like, hey, man, they're going to go to jail. If they find out, they got to go to jail. He said, let's find a way to marry them off without anybody happening to go to prison. Because in Egypt, if they found out the government find out the woman is pregnant and is not married, people are going to go to jail. She's going to go to jail. The father going to go to jail. Whoever pregnant, they're going to go to jail. In the Muslim countries, people go to jail for these things, right? So my friend brother who works for a government official, he said, let's find a way to bring them together without people not knowing she's pregnant, right? And without the government getting deeply involved, because if she's pregnant and have a baby, she's going to go to jail and the guy's going to go to jail, right? That was his job. His job was helping people with marital problems and getting married legally, right? That was one of his jobs. Even though he's not a sheikh, that's his government job, right? So sometimes here in America, in that black African American Muslim community, our issues that we have and what we go to the imam for, a lot of the masjids, sometimes the imam is not really qualified for that. Even the brothers who graduated from the Islamic universities, some of them don't know about this because they don't learn about counseling. You know, some of them do, some of them don't, depending on their level. All right, some of them might give more experience because some of the problems that happen in America, and especially related to the African American Muslim community and pertaining to American lifestyle and all Americans, there's some type of cultural things that happen in America that don't happen in the Muslim country, because either or it's eradicated in the culture due to people practicing Islam for centuries. So these things are eradicated in it, right? Or because of certain type of sins in America that exist and they don't exist in the Muslim country. So there's some type of sins that exist in America. And because these sins are openly practiced by everybody, many people are affected by it. But in the Muslim country, don't exist this problem because this sin is not practiced. It's against the law, and it been removed out of their culture for centuries. All right, it's a taboo. But in America, it's not a taboo. So there's some things that African American Muslim and the American society people gonna have that the everyday average imam might not learn, who study overseas. He might not be familiarized to deal with. And I gave you an example. I met somebody before, came to me, took shahada. It's like, yo, man, my mother's gay. You know, there's a brother on my page, young brother, took shahada. He's like, yo, his mother is gay, man. His mother is lesbian and got the lover living in the house. You ain't gonna hear that in a Muslim country. You're not gonna hear that in a Muslim country. You got two openly gay people's parents raising a child. You ain't gonna see that in a Muslim country, right? Even though there's a solution for it, but you don't know the mental state this person is going through. You got me? So the one who studied religion for a long time, but haven't studied American culture and social problems and how to deal with them, how really to give a person like this counseling, I could tell him what the law say in Quran. I could tell him what the ayat say. I could tell him have patience. I could tell him this. But mentally, you might not be able to deal with him mentally. He might be going through some mental health issues. So you might not be able to, the textbook might not tell you what to do with him mentally. So this is something, America being America, you're in a different situation that you're not in a Muslim country. So this is the reality. The reality is you're going to have running the community, groups of peoples, people who have the Islamic knowledge, right? Usually this is the purpose of boards, right? So you're going to need somebody to have Islamic knowledge. It could be one or two peoples. You're going to need somebody who knows about leadership abilities, but have to have some fundamental principles and understanding about Islam. They have to know somebody who knows about financing and managing. And have to know something about the halal and the haram also, about financing. And they can learn from their shaykh or the teacher. Then you're going to have somebody who deal with mental health. And you have somebody deal with the mental health, deal with social structure, governing. The governing, meaning governing in the United States, how the government is ran, how things are run in the district, how things get done. You're going to need all these things. All right? So one imam sometimes can't do all of this. Sometimes one imam, he can't do all of this. Or he doesn't have the qualifications. He might have the qualifications for the Islamic topics. Then that's what you hire him for. But you're going to need other people to fill in other positions and other places and other things and leadership abilities. All right? And then African American culture, we have a thing where we don't support our leaders, no matter who they are, whether they have the Islamic knowledge or not. We don't support each other. And this is something deeply issue that we don't know how to address, that needs to be addressed as blacks. Leadership and how to follow leadership. All right? Some of the old school Afrocentric imams want people to follow them blindly like they are the messenger of Allah. I have seen it with my eyes. I heard it with my ears. And I sometimes I'm like, yo, are you like, do you have like some low self-esteem? So like I saw so many imams, man. Do you have some low self-esteem? Why you want people to blindly follow your opinion? You know? I seen some of them, man, make some crazy statement. I'm like, yo, this is some cults, and we like your followers of your cults. I'm like, yo, where you get this from in a religion? You know? These things are not going to work, right? But the imam must have some type of, people have to have respect for him. You know? People have to have respect for him. And a lot of the problems, not just African American, Muslim community, I'm talking about the Muslim community in the whole in America, the people have lack of respect for Islamic knowledge. This is the main problem across the board. That there's a lack of respect for Islamic knowledge from the general Muslim population. There's a lack of respect of Islamic knowledge, and there's a lack of respect for people who have Islamic knowledge. There's a lack of respect for them, right? I've seen this all across the board, right? How people deal with them. I see people who deal with imams before and scholars, and but some people who have and who have age with them, some of them know how to deal with these type of people, right? And then there's a lack of respect in the African American community with coming together to build and organize. It's like we don't want to do it. We want to put all the effort on one person to do everything, and then when it doesn't happen, right, we blame this one person. When it takes in reality 2 or 3 people and the groups of peoples to do these things, we throw it on one person to do it, and then everything falls through. I remember there was a masjid here in New York somewhere. The people's like, yo, the bank is about to take the masjid, and they've been paying for years the imam money. They've been collecting donation for many years, and they went to look at the paperwork and stuff. The guy was doing his best, but he had no business skills, know nothing about accounting and managing book. He ain't know nothing about that. Only thing he knew is how to teach or to run a place, meaning teaching it, keeping it, opening and closing it. That's all he knew. And how to give a talks here and there. He knew nothing about business management. And that's why they almost lost their building. Because people threw all the responsibility on somebody who also come from this this background of from the civil rights movement, black conscious movement from the past, who made him the leader, and they put everything on him, even financially, right? And then what? When they almost lost the building or lost the place, they turned around and see, oh man, this guy was mismanaging the money because he knew nothing about management skills. Or they put people in the business management positions in the masjids. They themselves have financial problems, and they don't look into their financial background before they give them these positions, so they end up taking money. I mean, that falls on the people's community's fault. So it needs to be more than just, okay, replace the imam with somebody got more Islamic knowledge. No. It's not that only. It's about you working as a community and organized and not putting the burden on one person. That is the issue. When you put everything on one person, and if they're not qualified, that's another problem on top of a problem. All right? So these are some of the issues that we need to talk about, especially for those black conscious communities. Because a lot of the black conscious communities, they like have gone, some of them are gone. If they survive and exist today, they're barely surviving. They're barely surviving. And even when their religious leaders speak about Islam and talk about Islam, people who have knowledge sit and hear them like, yo, man, this guy, where he learn about Islam from? His information about Islam is not correct. And we live in 2021. We live in 2021 now. And he has so many people in our community who have studied Islam overseas, got degrees for them. They need to be in positions to teach people about Islam. And some of these other brothers who've been in the past, who might have some business skills or management skills, need to know how to adapt all these people together to work to build the community. This ain't no more about one person running everything. This is not going to happen. Come on. We live in a country. Come on. We live in the United States. If you look at the United States government, is the United States ran by one person? Come on. Did the president really run America? Come on, man. Do the president really run America? Let's ask yourself that question. We live in a country that practice this particular system where one person don't run the country. It's groups of peoples who run the country, right? The government understand that type of organizing, because if the president is taken out, the government don't collapse because there's other people already in place, all right? Saying they need to be in your masjid. Same thing needs to be inside your masjid. Not one person running the masjid. If he was to die, or not to fulfill his obligation, that means the whole community suffered? No, you have other peoples in positions, and they understand how to keep the organization or the masjid going. That's it. That's it. You know, when it comes to the religious aspects, a lot of the black African conscious community, them old school imams, a lot of them don't have the Islamic knowledge. Some of them do. Some of them don't today. To this day, some of them don't. Or they're getting old. Some of them are getting elderly. What happened when he passed away? You know? What happened when he passed away? You know, I'm going to say it blunt, I seen some black conscious communities, African American black conscious community. I'm telling you right now, when their imam die, the black African American Muslim ain't going to be the one take up the banner after. I seen some of these black African so-called conscious community imams and stuff, got the foreigners running everything. The foreigners, the Muslims who are foreigners, running everything. And you look at the black conscious imams, some of them, you look in their community, where their kids at? Their kids are not even in the masjid. Their children are not even in the masjid. They're not even preparing their children to run the community. Their children want to be rap stars. Some of them don't even want to practice Islam no more. I'm talking real. I'm talking serious. Their kids don't even want to practice Islam no more. Or they want to be like these rap stars or these kuffar. They want to be like them. So they're not in the community. Or they're there, but not even being prepped to run anything. They're not even being prepped to run anything. So in some of these communities, I see in my own eyes in New York, they got the immigrant Muslim who just came, who's organized, working with the imam. And so the imam, that black conscious imam, told about Malcolm X and this. So then he died. One of the immigrants going to take over. The immigrant Muslim going to take over, who might not be black himself, who might be Arab, or might be Asian, right? And then when he takes over, that's a wrap for you guys. It's a wrap for you. All these people talk about this black conscious stuff. It's a wrap in your community. It's gonna be a wrap. It's gonna be a wrap because your own children, your people don't know how to run the place. I mean, I sometimes look at it, I'm like, yo, it's sad. I be looking in the masjids, I see what's going on. I'm like, yo, how you talk about being black and black conscious and this and black people ownership? When your imam died, look, you got everybody working under him are the immigrant Muslims because they're dedicated. They already have the skills. They already see the importance of these things. They already understand how things should be ran. They understand this already. But the people in their community, the black African American community, don't have a clue. They have no clue what's going on. They're too busy chasing stupid stuff on Facebook or want to be like the kuffar and busy into rap music or whatever. They don't even have a clue. They don't even have a clue. You know? They love this imam. That's it. That's all. That's the further it's go. They just love this imam. Oh, he's black. He did a lot of work, and they just love him. Man, come on. That's not realistic. And then the other side of it, the other type of communities, I've been to some black conscious community. They got their masjid. They own the building. There's a few of them. There's a lot of them, and they're there. They own their building. They're a little bit organized, but their children are gone. I've seen communities, black African American communities, they own the building, they own the structure, they own some property, but their children are gone. They're not even practicing Islam. They don't have a clue or thought about the religion of Islam. And they're not even prepping for their own children or the people in their community to run the community when the imam fall. It's like the black home where the mother or the father, or the mother or the father, the black in the household who got kids, don't prepare financially for their children. Don't save. Don't put money aside for their kids in the case of emergency or if they die. And don't teach the kids what to do when they die. All right? You ever go to a janaza and somebody died and they don't know what to do? They don't know what to do. They don't know about they don't have the finances or whatever. That's how a lot of black people were living. That's the same way how our masters are ran. That's the same way in the black conscious community, their masters in their community are ran. As soon as the imam dies, they don't even know what to do. No one there from their own people, black people, to step up to take care of the community. The immigrant Muslim gonna end up has to do it. The immigrant Muslim, he gotta step in and do it. You know, just like when Malcolm X died, who buried him? You know, who buried Malcolm X? Just ask yourself, who buried Malcolm X? Even though he was new to Islam, look who buried him. You know, one of our brothers from outside had to bury him because he has the know-how. That's the same thing how it happened to a lot of African American and Muslim communities who don't have the Islamic knowledge and are not preparing their peoples. They're not preparing their youth to take over. They're not doing that no more. Just how we run our household culturally is the same way we're running our community. You know, the same way. Then when they lose the building or somebody else from outside, they're from their own interest, somebody who doesn't have their interests take over the community and they go on a different direction, they be mad. I've seen this in the masters in the African American community. They get mad. Oh, how this happen? They're like, how this happen? Because you're like, you never was prepared to take over. You never was prepared to keep this thing going up on the flow. Your guys are chasing dunya, or you're chasing to be like or you're chasing the life of the kuffar. You know? Or you can't even stand up and lead the salat. You know, we can't even stand. I know some masters right now. I see the imam. I said, as soon as he's gone, they're going to lose their community. And that's what happened to a lot of African American Muslim community. We're not prepared. You know? So instead of trying to build a community based on one individual or personality, because now we, in a sense, in the African American Muslim community, it's like with our masjids, it's like a culture of personality following. It's no longer about building community. It's about following a personality and what this person do or say. That's all it's about. Following individuals. You know, these type of things, man, it brings no benefit. People don't benefit from this. You know, the benefit of that, there is no benefit. Because when that person is gone, the community is gone. When the person goes away or die or goes somewhere else, the knowledge is lost, or there's no knowledge, there's no continuation of learning. You know? There's no continuation of learning. You know? Or I've seen a community where the black people ran it in the beginning, and they don't have no one wants to step up from the black community, and the immigrant Muslim come in and is like, yo, we know how to run this. They have no Islamic knowledge themselves, immigrant community. Some of them don't have no Islamic knowledge. They don't have, a lot of them, they don't have no Islamic knowledge, but they know how to run a place, and they know, yeah, we need to get an imam who has knowledge. They know that. They know that. They're ignorant enough to know, yeah, I need to get an imam, somebody who got knowledge, and put them in this position, and we run the place financially. I've seen black communities that start off black, and they have no knowledge how to run a community, how to keep the money up, how to keep the building up, none of this stuff. Then the immigrant comes in, and it's like, hey, man, we want to help you out. Then they're like, yo, then the immigrant turns around and say, what's wrong with these peoples? Well, yeah, why? It's like, yo, it's like one day you're in the masjid, one day we see you guys in the masjid one day, then we don't see you guys like for another month or two. Or they'd be like, yo, hey, you come for salat, but, you know, I never see your kids in the masjid because your kids are trying to be like the kuffar. They're like, yo, we know this place is a masjid still, and they take it over because they have to step it up. They take it over from you guys, and y'all come around and say, oh, man, these people, they stole our community. They're running us out. You know, it's an idiot. It's idiots. This is the idiot, how idiot thinks. And not to even use the word idiot. This is like a person who is not organized and not planned and don't have no planning. You know, there's one thing that in the African American Muslim community, they don't teach, especially in the conscious community. They don't teach how to keep something up, keep something going. They don't even teach this. Brothers know how to take over masjids. They know how to run up in places and run people out. No, they know about this. And we know about how to take over people's masjids and run them out. You know, we know about these type of things. But when it comes to keeping the masjid afloat, making the community grow, owning things in the community legally, we don't know. And then that information is there inside the society we live in. And other Muslims will come outside this country, come to this country outside, they come in and they learn, they have these things, or they use these things that are there to benefit their communities. So it's not about just removing that old schooly man from the black conscious community, don't really have a lot of Islamic knowledge. It ain't about removing him. It's about removing the bad thinking, the bad behavior, the type of behavior that we don't benefit from. That is what needs to be removed and replaced with something better. Because if we remove that from the conscious, this bad behavior and this bad thinking, this bad thinking that leads to bad practices or backward practices, if we remove this from our thinking, then we will do better. All right? We will do better if we remove this bad thinking and bad culture that we don't benefit from. Then we will be doing better. And we'll be doing better collectively, not individually. Collectively. All right? Show me today black conscious master community that are producing Hafid Quran, students of knowledge, medical doctors, scientists, businessmen and businesswomen. Show me a black conscious community that's doing that. You can't tell me one black conscious community, African American conscious community that's doing that. Can't show me one. Producing all of them. Hafiz in Quran. Religious scholars, or at least students of knowledge. Doctors. Businessmen and women. Show me a community that's doing that. In the black. If I go to the Bangladeshi Muslim community, if I go to the Arab Muslim community, their community is producing that. Their community is producing that. Blacks only do that as individuals. When black person does that, one of them have one of these qualities. Businessman, businesswoman, Muslim scholar, Hafiz of Quran. That's an individual choice, either by that person's parent or by himself. That's a personal choice. But if I go to the Arab community, Muslim community, Bangladeshi Muslim community, they're producing that inside their community. They're producing that. They're even making the schools for them to produce these things. I go to the black conscious African American Muslim community, they're not producing nothing. They're not producing no Muslim scholars. No Hafiz in Quran. No businessman and businesswoman, and not even owning property. Because we are busy chasing dreams and individualism. We're not organized. You know, I was watching a program yesterday about science and about historical people who became extinct, right? So we talk about different tribes and different countries, in particular Africa, and different nations and language that today became extinct. And they're like, how did these people come to become extinct? Wallahi, billahi, black African American Muslim, black African American people in general, Muslim or non-Muslim, and blacks, African Americans, Muslim also, and non-Muslim, we're going to become extinct groups of peoples. And this is going to happen to our peoples. The intellectual of us is going to get tired. And we're going to start going to societies that will accept us for our blackness, that we're able to use our intellect to benefit ourselves and these peoples. And we're going to breed into them. We're already doing it now. Me personally, I got biracial children. Me personally, I have biracial children, right? Not Caucasian. I have biracial children. Many of us blacks, we're starting to pull off into other race, other societies where we could get ahead. And we are marrying there and having children there. In the black culture, it's happening already in black culture. In the Muslim culture, it's practiced a lot by many of us. Why? Because we see that we can't deal with each other. We can't build with each other. So sooner or later, we as a group of people are going to be extinct. We're not going to exist. We're not going to exist. And the few of us who exist in America, black people who exist, we're going to be like how black Hispanic people are. Ever meet black people? Ever hear like black Latinos? You know, they don't want to aspire themselves as being black. They're going to say they're Latino. They're Latino. You ever see this? I have cousins. I can talk about Spanish people. I got cousins who's Spanish, right? I know this personally. I have cousins who's Spanish. Right? I hope one of them see this in the video, right? So I remember my cousins growing up. I said, "Yeah, black." They're like, "Nah, we Puerto Rican." That's what they used to tell me. I hope they see this video because they on Facebook, right? They say, "Yeah, black." It's like, "Nah, we Puerto Rican. I follow Puerto Rican." Sooner or later, you're gonna have black folks just like that. We have black people in America, especially in the Muslim community. You're gonna have a lot of black people like this. They don't want to associate themselves with being black American because the black American equals no productive, no productivity, nothing productive, nothing productive, and anything associated with them from their own mouths and their own behavior, not what people label them with, but from their own mouths and their own behavior is backwardsness, and things are not productive. It's a time to end this type of thinking and behavior because that's going to be the end. We're going to be extinct groups of peoples. Watch, one day American government going to get slick. One day U.S. government is going to be very slick. And what I mean by very slick, they're going to find their solution to black problems and black people problems in America. One day the U.S. government, they're going to do this. Mark my words. They're going to turn around and say, you know what? Let's start recognizing black people in America. Because many of them, some of them, a lot of them, they mix with other nationalities. One day U.S. government going to recognize, going to say, you know what? If a black person has a white father, they're going to say, let's recognize him being white. If they have Native American blood, let them recognize themselves and fall into that class of Native American, indigenous peoples. That's going to solve some of our black issues and black problems. Let them start identifying themselves, allowing them to identify themselves from being other than black. That's going to solve the black people, the government issue with black people. They're already running away from being black. Let's solve this. Let's make it easy. If they have some great-great-grandfather who is a white man, some slave master, let them start identifying themselves as being part of that person's family. One day, white man will get very sophisticated in his racism. He's going to say, yo, let's end this black issue. Let's start allowing black folks to identify themselves with being non-black. Because in reality, you follow the lineage of your father. So I'm telling you, one day black folks in America, we're going to be extinct. Just how now that we are bombarded in our communities by issues from outside. Remember I mentioned in the beginning of the video, some of our issues are external and internal. The external things are things that we're not able to control, like systemic racism. So some of the external struggles that we're going to have, we're going to be bombarded with it. And just like I said, as the African American Imams are they're using tactics that work well in the civil rights movement, in the beginning of the black conscious movement, that work well for that time, that don't work well for now, and how their opponents or how the conflict is coming to them from the external. They're using old tactics to deal with it, but the tactics that are coming to them now already are new. They are designed with certain type of results. And the certain type of results they're designed for, you cannot identify them. Just like COVID-19. What's going to be the effect of COVID-19 in the future on American society, in particular the black American society? We don't know yet. But people from our external opponents, they know. They're strategists. We're not strategists. We're not even strategists when it comes to running our community. So sooner or later, we're going to become extinct. And you're seeing some of the issues, or we're seeing some of the corrosion of it, or the stains of it now. Some of the stains of it now, look in the black, conscious African American or Muslim community, some of the stains of it is that they have no real leadership, no real community, no real growth, no real development. We've been here for over 20 or 30 years, and the immigrant Muslim come overnight, and he builds in less than 10 years. He builds a whole community. He builds a masjid, and around the masjid builds around economics. Well, I'm going to make a video where I live here in Jamaica, Queens, the Bangladeshi people. They've been here since the 90s. I show you all the blocks and the businesses and the masjids and the doctor's office, lawyer's office, real estate office, masjids, schools, Islamic schools, high school, grade school, and it goes to some of the public schools in my area, all Muslim, Bengali, and how they running this. And the blacks, we're not running nothing. Running nothing. We don't know how to run nothing. This stuff got to end. One day I'm going to make a video. Well, I'm going to make a video where I live. And I say, yo, these people have been here since 1990. At least 90s, they start coming like in 95 in the area where I live. And they own almost everything. And the blacks, I go to some black community, go to Master Taco in Brooklyn. Man, blacks don't own nothing in Master Taco, around Master Taco in Brooklyn. Some Africans do. Immigrants do. And Master Taco been there so long in Brooklyn, and the black African American Muslim in that community don't barely own anything on that block. And they're the same people who cleaned up that street from drugs back in the 80s, who cleaned up that street. And you go there now, the black African American Muslims, they ain't running nothing. They're like busy trying to be like the kuffar. They have even no clue about the religion of Islam, some of them. They're confused about even the religion of Islam. And many of them are chasing to be like the kuffar. When it comes to the business and stuff, I don't see no black African American Muslim own no business over there except for maybe one or two. Yo, this type of thinking got to end, man. This type of behavior and thinking. Somebody need to take deep thoughts, deep sitting and deep thinking, and say, hey, what's the solution to this? Because some people find the solution. Some of us, solution is get away from them. Let's go somewhere else in a society that we could fit in. And that's what a lot of us is doing right now. I have a lot of my associates and brothers I know, just like me, who feel away. A lot of them not even married to women from here. Women from other nationalities. Got business set up in their country. Got family over there. Got children over there. And like, yo, man, black people, we can't for some reason we can't get together in America. I'm going to go to another society and community is going to allow me where I could be me. And I could do what I want to do. And I can have some growth and development. And I gotta argue and push and pull and scrap and fight with somebody who look like me to do what is right. I don't want to do that no more. That's what a lot of our people are saying. Brother Farid, let me know. You said the Atlantic Master are producing all that. Let me see, brother. Send me a link, inshallah, of the video. Send me a link of the masjid. I like to see, because I've been in a lot of places. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing this African American Muslim. Or I'll end with this, and I'll make another video about it. Or the black community, Muslim community, they're just championing only about their masjid and not doing nothing else. We got that also. They successfully grasp the build a masjid, and that's all it's about. And it's like they got it made, and that's it. This is like this is like sometimes I look at some of this and I'm like, yeah, but you guys don't want ownership. You don't want to buy the land the masjid is at. You don't want to live around the masjid. You don't want to own the property around the masjid. Start building the community. You don't want now start having positions in that local government in that district, where you're running the district also. There's some things we have to think about. And I'm not saying we are not doing this. Everybody's not doing this. But I like to talk about it because this is a topic that we need to talk about. And I will end with that. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Bishallah wa anta astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk. And Muhammad Amir Prince, look at the video from the beginning, inshallah. I mentioned what do I propose.